Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode, before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Bleach, Agent of the Shinigami Arc, Episode 6, Fight to the Death, Ichigo vs. Ichigo. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief summary of exactly what happened within this episode. Rukia is accidentally given a defective substitute soul that, once inside Ichigo's body, causes chaos, ruins his reputation, and then refuses to give his body back once Ichigo returns from fighting a hollow, leading to them having to hunt it down. Alright, so now that I've rewatched the episode, I'm going to give an opinion and rank the episode against the other episodes within the arc and the series overall. A reminder that on this channel, we rank on a mostly objective ranking list. It's mostly objective as bias and judgment still apply. And then also the personal ranking list, which is purely based on my own personal opinion. All right, so for the mostly objective ranking, we'll start with the mostly objective rank values, and I've highlighted those that apply to this episode. In this episode, we have 4 multi-arc supporting character introductions. We have Ururu, Sumugaya, Jinta Hanakari, Tessia Tsukabishi, and Urahara Kisuke. Urahara Kisuke owns a store that caters to Shinigami, who are in the human world, and the other 3 are his employees at that store. It looks like Jinta often bullies Ururu, and Ururu is a little bit oblivious of a character. We then also get some world building in this episode, which is the Urahara shop's existence, and that is also revealed to be where Rukia got her human suit that she wears. Then she also, while she's there doing some maintenance on her human suit, she also gets a Gekongan, which is substitute soul pills. However, once they are used, we find out that in fact it is not a substitute soul that is inside, but a modified soul that's inside. And we get some lore from the Soul Society's history about mod souls being modified in a project called the Spearhead Project, and they were supposed to be souls designed for combat to fight hollows, but it was deemed to be too unethical, and so the mod souls were then destroyed by Soul Society, or were supposed to have been destroyed by Soul Society. It's also revealed when a mod soul goes inside of a body, that body gains some sort of superhuman ability. In the case of the mod soul in this episode, that is superhuman strength in his legs, so he can run extremely fast, jump extremely high, and so on and so forth. Now with all of these, there is basically a +3 for each of the 4 introduced characters. That brings us to a total score of 12. And then we, of course, add 4 for 16 with the world building. That's in the episode. However, there are a couple of negatives as well. On the negative side, we have that this is basically a setup episode. It is setting up for a future episode, for a future battle. There isn't really much, like, well, there's a lot of world building that goes on in it, obviously, but that world building as well is set up for what will be coming in the future episode. So that always, to me, there's not really anything wrong necessarily with setting up for future episodes. You have to do that. But I often find, like, with setup plots, sometimes they can be a little bit on the more boring side because you're essentially just introducing information so that it can be more interesting in the future, if that makes sense. And that is, of course, worth a -1. It's only worth -1 because like I said, there's nothing wrong with a setup episode. They're needed in a series so that you can set up for future events and provide information so that you don't have to interrupt the action with a bunch of exposition. But like I said, it can be a little bit boring, so -1 on that. And then a -2 for negative messaging and or behaviors. The reason that this applies is that the modified soul that is in Ichigo, he has very, very poor behavior and also poor personality. He basically damages public property on the school by breaking a wall or a gate, a railing on a pathway immediately. Then he basically jumps up into his classroom and I wouldn't go so far as to say it was an assault, but he expresses perverted feelings and behaviors towards the female students. And while it is an innocent kiss, like on the hand cheek, he's still kissing without permission, and it's not great behavior, not a great look. Obviously, it's ruining Ichigo's reputation. And then, of course, he's also very big on having attention on him as a modified soul. And so that negative messaging and behavior is a -2. Even with those negatives, because of all the characters that were introduced, we're well above still. Well, we're not well above, but we're above 10. And so it is objectively a 10 out of 10 episode. On the mostly objective ranking, when two episodes have the same number score, they are just put in episode order, as this isn't based on opinion. So in that case, the current list, the current standings for this ranking are The Day I Became a Shinigami. The Shinigami's work in second place. Third is The Older Brother's Wish, The Younger Sister's Wish. In fourth, we have Fight to the Death, Ichigo versus Ichigo. In fifth, Beat the Invisible Enemy. And in sixth place, we have Cursed Parakeet so far. And so now we come to the personal ranking, which is solely based on my opinion. So I will start by providing my opinion. So first off, I don't like the modified soul that is in Ichigo. Like I mentioned for the mostly objective list, he's perverted. He's a defective product, we learn later at Urhar's store after Rukia leaves. He goes into the back and realizes that she was given the wrong product. Obviously, the substitute or modified soul is a bit of an attention seeker, loves to be looked at, and perverted. And of course, because of the perversion and the attention seeking, tons of secondhand embarrassment. I am a person who suffers with secondhand embarrassment. If a character is doing something embarrassing, I feel that embarrassment. I'm not a very empathetic person, but I am empathetic to that, and I feel it. So this was just, I did not enjoy that character or aspect of this episode at all. All those scenes, not enjoying. Then, of course, well, we still want to speak about the positives too, which there were a few funny moments. There was when Rukia was giving Ichigo the candy for the first time. He comments on the fact that it's in the shape of a duck, and she says that she was disappointed that she didn't get the rabbit version, which was funny. Then there is the fact that after Ichigo and Rukia catch the modified soul and go chasing after it, Ichigo has a mini panic crisis about his carefully built image, and meanwhile off to the side, Rukia kind of wonders at the fact that he thought he was building an image, as she obviously didn't agree with that. We also get that Ichigo kind of sympathizes with the modified souls once he learns about the spearhead, learns that, Soul Society and the Shinigami took it upon themselves to modify these souls for combat, and then when they decided that it wasn't going to work or that it was unethical, they took it upon themselves then to destroy that which they had created. And he, of course, sympathizes with this and wonders how the modified soul must be feeling. And then we move over to where the modified soul is happily, literally jumping around, so happy that he's getting attention because of how high he's jumping and all the eyes are on him. And that is one of the few times in this episode where that soul character actually gave a positive impression. He was very happy to be doing that, but at the same time, poor Ichigo, when he takes over his body again, there's a lot of people who have seen him doing things that normally he would not be able to do. And then we have the fact that Ichigo does fight with his body, not to the death, as the title would imply. So the title is kind of a lie. You know, it's fight to the death, Ichigo versus Ichigo. And it is Ichigo versus Ichigo, but it's not to the death. Ichigo is the one who initially loses in his Shinigami form. He gets kind of beaten up a bit. And then, of course, the soul escapes, causing him and Rukia to have to go after it. And then we don't even get to see a conclusion to that fight because, as mentioned, the soul escapes. As it's escaping, it comes across some kids playing video games while skipping class, and he happens to overhear one of the kids call a character in his video game stupid, and that he's just going to have to get rid of it, which triggers the modified soul because that's what we've learned in the lore the Shinigami have done to it, and it becomes murderous and tries to attack the kids. Of course, this is when Ichigo finds the body and stops it, but of course Ichigo does not stop. Well, no, basically that's the end of the episode. It leaves us on a cliffhanger. Again, we don't get to see any conclusion to the fight. It is a setup episode, so it's at that point that we have Ichigo protecting the kids, and that is where this episode ends, presumably to be continued in the next one. Having said all that, most of this episode did not give me positive feelings. You know, there were some comedic moments I did laugh out loud, so it's not the worst episode, but there were a lot of things I didn't like as well. So personally, I only gave this episode a 3, which is the lowest score I've given so far, and therefore, as a reminder of our current standings, we have in first place The Older Brother's Wish, The Younger Sister's Wish. Second place, Beat the Invisible Enemy. Third, The Shinigami's Work. Fourth, Cursed Parakeet. Fifth, The Day I Became a Shinigami. And then this episode is in last place. In sixth, Fight to the Death, Ichigo versus Ichigo. And so now we come to the final ranking of this video, the third ranking list that we are doing, which is our series ranking so far, and this is where we rank each arc against each other. Obviously, we have not finished this arc, but once we do so, we will then calculate what percentage the mostly objective ranking is and the personal ranking is, and that will then tell us how good that arc was. And then as we finish each arc, it'll each get a percentage score, and once we finish the series, we will then know which arcs are the best and which ones are maybe worth passing on. But for this arc, which is the Agent of the Shinigami arc, we have a total of 20 episodes, which means the total maximum score that we can achieve is 200. With this episode, we got a 10 out of 10 for the mostly objective score, which brings that total up to 52 out of 200. And on the personal side, it was only a 3 out of 10, and that brings us to 37 out of 200. And with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Bleach, Agent of the Shinigami Arc, Episode 6, Fight to the Death, Ichigo vs. Ichigo. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.